Hi, I'm Landon Doctor, a student in History 101 FO2X in the fall 2021 semester at Muskegon Community College. I'm going to be doing my narrated PowerPoint on the construction of the Parthenon. The Parthenon had been constructed during the golden ages of Athens. Athens had been sacked by the Persians led by Xerxes in 480 BCE. Within 2 years, they had come back to defeat the Persians in 478 BCE. After the First Persian War, the citizens had voted on whether or not to rebuild the Acropolis. During this time, Pericles had come to rule. Pericles ruled from 460 to 425 BCE. During his rule, there was great economic flourishment in the city-state of Athens. The Parthenon had been constructed within the Acropolis at Athens. An acropolis is a series of temples and structures on a high hill. To Athens, the Acropolis was a religious center and a showpiece to the rest of the world. The Parthenon was built on top of the tallest hill in the center of the Acropolis. The first stone had been laid for the older Parthenon in 490 BCE. In the middle of its construction, in 480 BCE, the Acropolis had once more been invaded by the Persians. The Persians had completely sacked the Acropolis and destroyed the unfinished temple of the older Parthenon. The first stone had been laid for the older Parthenon in 490 BCE. In the middle of its construction, in 480 BCE, the Acropolis had once more been invaded by the Persians. The Persians had completely sacked the Acropolis and destroyed the unfinished temple of the older Parthenon. Much less well known than its successor, the older Parthenon's construction had been ordered by Pericles. It was to be made from 20,000 tons of marble, which would have made it the largest building of all marble at its time. It was constructed using 3 different units of measurement, which were kept track of on Solomon's stone. It has inspired many modern-day building designs, such as the White House. In this picture here, it shows the older Parthenon in comparison to the scale of the new Parthenon. Following the First Persian War, the Athenians wanted something to show their power and pride to the rest of the world. Pericles came up with the idea of an even grander temple than the last. The new Parthenon was to be built to scale with the older Parthenon. An 1888 expedition discovered that it was constructed with a 0.03% margin of error, which was incredible for the time. 2 years of careful planning had gone into the idea of the Parthenon. The reconstruction was led by a star-studded lineup of officials. First, Ictinus, one of the greatest architects of the time, was appointed chief architect. Next, Callicritus acted as contractor and technical coordinator of the project. Phidias, who was one of the greatest sculptors of all time, was set in charge of integrating artistic elements in the Parthenon. This great project was constructed in an insane time of just 9 years. A major focal point of the Parthenon was its great artwork. As soon as you entered the building, you were met by a massive statue standing at 39 feet or 12 meters tall.
This statue is called Athena Parthenos, and is of the Greek goddess Athena, the goddess of war. It had been sculpted by Phidias and was made from a shell of gold, ivory, and jewels, which would have amounted to millions of dollars in the modern day. It had been under construction during the full 9-year period of the Parthenon, and in her right hand she holds Nike, the god of victory, and in her left hand she holds a shield covered in images of men fighting centaurs. Centaurs were half-man, half-horse hybrids. It is interpreted today that these centaurs were representing the Persians. Some other artwork found within the Parthenon was the South Mesotopes. These were statues engraved into the walls of the south end of the building, which depicted battles between men and centaurs, just like the shield of Athena. You could also find the pediments. The pediments were a series of statues, originally around 50, that had been located within the arch above the entrance to the Parthenon. Today, only 11 out of these 50 statues remain. One of the key elements of the Parthenon had been its architecture. The Parthenon had been built in Doric style. The designers of the Parthenon kept in mind optical illusions. To combat this, they had built the Parthenon with intentional slight curves to its horizontal elements, and had made the columns fatter towards the middle. These elements were included to give it a grander appearance from farther away and to eliminate compensations made by the eye. The columns of the Parthenon were aligned 8 by 17 for a total of 46 columns. The architects assigned to the project were Ictinos and Callicratus. One of the key aspects that went into the design of the Parthenon was the golden ratio. The golden ratio had been invented by Pythagoras, the inventor of the Pythagorean theorem. The golden ratio was the ratio of 9:4 of both length to width and width to height. This ratio is known as golden because it is known to be the most pleasing to the eye. To carry out this enormous project, a large number and a wide variety of workers were required. Workers from all around the West gathered to the Acropolis. These included goldsmiths, coppersmiths, marble sculptors, carpenters, rope makers, and ox owners. It is said that even the great Athenian philosopher Socrates had worked on the project as a stonemason. To carry out this enormous project, a large number and a wide variety of workers were required. Workers from all around the West gathered to the Acropolis. These included goldsmiths, coppersmiths, marble sculptors, carpenters, rope makers, and ox owners. It is said that even the great Athenian philosopher Socrates had worked on the project as a stonemason. The material of choice for the construction was marble. Over 20 tons of marble were required for the construction, making it the largest marble structure of all time. In order to transport this marble, the Lithogogius road had been created to transport it from the cave of Daedalus in Penteli to the Acropolis. Some of the great advancements made during the construction were in engineering. The Athenians had came up with the invention of the crane. These cranes used huge pulleys with slides on either sides which acted as counterweights. The Greek pulley could lift a 10-ton bundle of marble 15 meters in just 20 minutes. They had also used smaller wooden cranes for smaller jobs. With the construction project of this size comes great costs. The total cost of the construction had come out to 469 silver talents, which is equivalent to a modern day $163,212,000 US, making it the greatest construction project of its time.
In order to fund this project, the citizens of the city-state were heavily taxed. Pericles also had another way of getting funds for the project. Athens had collected money yearly from Athenian allies or the Delanian League that were supposed to go towards preventing future conflicts with the Persians. Instead, Pericles had taken these funds and put them towards the construction of the Parthenon. 1/60th of the Delanian League's total budget had gone towards the Parthenon. Pericles had told the allies that this money was donations to Athena.
Public views on the construction of the Parthenon had been mixed. Most of the public was in favor of the construction, thinking it would be a sign of Athenian pride and power. Those who objected did not want to have to assist in the funding of the project. The strongest opponent to the construction had been banished by Pericles for 10 years from the city-state. In the years following its completion, the Athenian public had not even been able to enjoy the Parthenon. Within 3 years of its completion in 432 BCE, plague had raged through Athens, killing a third of the population, including the great leader Pericles. Before his decease, Pericles had begun to form an army of Athenian citizens to fight off the growing threat of the neighboring Spartans. The Peloponnesian War had raged on, and the Spartans had over time overtaken the Acropolis. The Spartans had turned the Parthenon into army barracks for its soldiers. In the years after the Spartan takeover, the Parthenon had gone through many transformations. In the 6th century BCE, Christian monks from the Greek Orthodox Church had taken over the Parthenon and turned it into a Christian church. They renamed it the Church of Holy Wisdom. The Christians had gone through smashing and destroying the artwork and sculptures in which they felt were pagan or worshiped multiple gods. In 1204, the Parthenon had undertaken another makeover. By 1204, the Franks from France had taken over and turned the Parthenon into a Catholic church. By 1458, the Parthenon had undergone changed ownership once again. It was now in control of the Ottoman Turks. The previously Catholic church was converted to an Islamic mosque. In 1627, the Parthenon in its initial form had come to an end. In conflict with the Turks in 1627, the Venetians had attacked the Parthenon with cannons and mortars. The Ottomans inside had sheltered their gunpowder along with the women and children of the city. The gunpowder mixed with the cannons and mortars had created a huge explosion, killing 28 people and taking out 28 of the Parthenon's columns.
Here are the sources I had used to conduct my research for this project.